Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovias inside Eford Studios, downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. I need to take my own advice and print out on my Kyocera printer a big old sign that says, "Are the StreamYard settings correct before you record? Yes or no?" So let's do a little take two here, Joe. Check out copiers-plus.com. You were in the building last night. Did a little Law of the Wolf with Scott Wood live on YouTube last night. I checked it out a little bit. The live chat was popping last night, and it had nothing to do with the game. Had nothing to do with the loss.
It did not.
For NC State and the win for Duke.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You're right.
You're really right. We're at the point now where as the season looks like it's slipping away, or it has already slipped away for NC State and their NCAA tournament chances outside of going on a run in DC.
Yeah, not just going on a run, winning it.
Like, you got to win the thing. We have now truly, I think after last night, we've truly entered the chat when it comes to Kevin Keatts and what will happen next with that basketball program. And Boo Corrigan, for the first time as an athletics director at NC State, having to make a legitimate decision as to what to do next with that basketball program.
Yeah, and I think that's where to start the conversation.
Yeah.
And as much as we can say it's about Kevin Keatts, I think it's about Boo Corrigan and what does he want to do. As I said last night on the Law of the Wolf, as I've said with you many times, I think the conversation at the administrative level is different than what it's happening at the fan level.
Sure.
Those do intersect when you get to situations like they're in now. They've lost 4 or 5 since beating Clemson, and most of us saying, wow, they just saved their season. They gave themselves a chance, is what they did with that win at Clemson. And how they've reacted since then, quite frankly, it's not good enough.
No, it's not.
So now you have this assessment, and you have to understand there is a relationship between Kevin and Boo Corrigan and Randy Woodson, right? So what does Boo do? What does he want to do? He was recently given a 5-year contract extension. And I think the fair part of the conversation with Boo is, as Scott was saying last night, 90% of the fan base is checked out. I still think that's too high.
No, I agree with him.
Okay. So you're saying 90.
We can discuss that next.
I would say, really through no fault of his own, I feel like 2/3 of the fan base has a negative approval rating of Boo Corrigan. And part of that is he's laissez-faire. And part of that is he's laissez-faire. Part of that is he's not Debbie Yao, right?
That's his biggest problem.
So looking at...
It's that simple.
If we go back to when he was hired, which is, I think, when Boo was hired, I think is the right lens to look at how this decision will ultimately be made. Because in 19, he's hired, and he's basically dealing with the NCAA case, which is what he was specifically hired to work on and to help NC State navigate that. And then the football season in 19 was a disaster. And what did he do after the disaster of 19 in football? He went to Dave Doran and he said, how can I help you? How can I make this better for you?
Yeah.
He basically allotted more money to the coaching staff. They end up making some smart moves and smart changes, and you've seen Dave progress. Kevin Keatts, going back to that 19 season, misses the tournament. They're the highest rated team in the history of the net not to make the tournament. The next year, the season gets scotched. 21 is because of COVID. 21, they're an NIT team, underachieved. 22, they lost more games in school history, the most games in school history. He goes to Kevin in 22 the same way he went to Dave and didn't fire him. Says, what can I do to help you? Kevin changes his staff. You saw last year, they put together an NCAA tournament team here in the NIL era. And I think they followed the same template this year. The pieces that they made and the parts that they put together didn't work out the same way that last year's puzzle went together.
So now, here's the question.
So now what do you do? You have 5 years in front of you as Boo. You have a fan base that the easy play for Boo Corrigan is to replace Kevin Keatts. Tap into the White family tree and either hire directly Mike White from Georgia, who I think he would have hired. You can go to Brian White, who's the athletic director at FAU, and see if you can sweet talk Dusty May out of leaving FAU, which I don't think would be that outlandish.
It's tough to leave Boca, man.
You can go to the Odom family tree. Ryan Odom's at VCU after being at Utah State, after famously being the number 16 seed at UMBC to beat Virginia. You can go to the NC State family tree. I would personally love to see Justin Gainey get a chance to be the head coach at NC State.
Tough to pry him out of Tennessee, though.
I could also see Tennessee either going to the Final Four or winning the national championship, and Rick Barnes deciding he wants to retire, and Justin Gainey being the head coach at Tennessee.
I want you to think about that real quick.
And
I'm going to put
the last state one is Archie Miller, who's at URI right now. So
sure,
there's some options out there for him. Ultimately, he has to decide what is the best option for NC State. The financial part of it is Kevin is owed $5.4 million of a buyout. That's not insignificant, but it also requires someone to be motivated. Normally, that someone to be motivated would be Wendell Murphy. I think most people understand that Wendell and his family like Kevin Keatts. Wendell's also invested in UNCW, and that's kind of sort of how Kevin got here to begin with.
Yeah.
So I don't think he would be the one motivated to say, all right, well, here's $5 million to pay Kevin to go away. And by the way, you need at least $2 million in NIL to have a good team. And you're probably going to need at least $5 million other than hiring. I think you could get Odom and you can probably get Justin for less, but Justin's making a bunch of money as an assistant at Tennessee. So I don't think it won't be cheap, but he has to do the financial math in his own head. Where is this? Where is the program? Where is the fan base? This apathy that has set in.
Yeah.
How do you kind of try to fix basketball at NC State?
It's funny you bring it to Justin Gainey and the Tennessee, and they could go to the Final Four and all this other stuff, because I do think there's a separate conversation about the series of unfortunate timeline events for NC State basketball, which we can explore in a second. But I want to go down the list of things that you talked about and address them right off the bat. It's time. It's time. I think it's time for Kevin Keatts and NC State to go in different directions. This is not an indictment of Kevin Keatts. I'm just simply saying that in 7 years, it's clearly, it's pretty evident it has not worked out at NC State, and it's not going to work out at NC State. At some point, your results, regardless of who's in charge, the NCAA, NIL, blah, 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 your record is your record. And in 7 years, they've got what? One NCAA tournament win?
No, they don't have any.
They don't have any. That's right.
Yeah.
They don't have any. My bad. I thought they had one game.
2 trips. They have 2 NCAAs.
So no wins in the NCAA tournament, 2 trips in that 7 years. And even in the ACC tournament, they haven't even done a deep run. I mean, at least Herb Sendek got to a ACC championship game. Sidney Lowe got to an ACC championship game in the red sports coat, right? Like, there has been at least some hooks with the previous coaching staffs, right down to Mark Godfrey. Their hook was
Mark went twice to the Sweet 16.
Right. There was a hook there. They were the last team in, those types of things. The problem with NC State and Kevin Keatts is there's never been a hook. I mean, it's that simple. And I don't see where it's going to happen going forward. There is no hook for Kevin Keatts and NC State. But my question is, in Boo Corrigan's mind, when did the clock start? Did the clock start in 2022 when Boo went to Kevin Keatts and said, all right, what I did with football, it's now time to do with you.
Yeah.
Let's work on the staff. What do you need? What's the NIL parameters? How do we evolve this program? Does the clock start in 22? Because if the clock starts in 22, then Kevin Keatts is coming back.
Right.
If Boo Corrigan looks at the totality of the 7 years and sees the apathy that's set in, because I think that's probably the biggest indictment for Wolfpack basketball right now. And this is something that has been stacked and stacked and stacked going all the way back to the 90s, post Jim Valvano, where you have lost, by my estimation, because I'm terrible with generations, you've essentially lost 2 generations of basketball fans that actually have any level of investment with Wolfpack basketball. I would say about 2 generations worth, maybe a generation and a half.
Yeah.
I
don't want to defend Herb Sendek, but he had success relative to the teams not named North Carolina and Duke.
Sure. But
and with Mark, you do have people who are now, by the way, that was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. This is why it's been a long time.
You do have people in their 30s who are like, yeah, it was kind of cool. Beating Villanova, beating LSU, and going to the Sweet 16.
But you see where the point of diminishing returns has happened, right? You go back to, and this is ultimately my point, and where you've lost generations over time, and why it all leads to last night. They lose to Duke. They lose to Carolina and Duke on a Saturday and Monday turnaround, and the best that you can really get is a shoulder shrug. I wasn't at the game last night, but I could tell from television it wasn't a particularly full building.
That's the most Duke fans I've ever seen in PNC Arena.
Right, that's a problem.
Yeah,
that is a problem, and you're still going to get some decent crowds there because ultimately, as you like to point out, as Debbie Yao pointed out to you a long time ago, all those tickets are paid for.
Yep.
So at some point, you're just going to have to get your money's worth. The people who are dropping 20 grand a year to sit courtside club, hey, man, I'm just going to use it as a networking event.
Careful.
I'm just saying.
Too many of our people.
I know, but I'm not saying anything that you don't agree with.
I know.
It's a networking event for them. I'm here, bring a client. I mean, there's reasons to still go, even if the team is not doing it for you. But you see where the point of diminishing returns is for NC State basketball.
What's the point of diminishing expectations?
Like Andrew Carter pointed this out last night on Twitter, and he's right. In that you go back when Herb Sendek wasn't quote unquote good enough. Well, that was not good enough relative to what NC State fans were used to at that point in the mid 90s. Because that's the other thing that I think you and I have a hard time processing, and why I think that this is a larger problem for NC State that is going to take multiple years to bring back. And that's why.
But I don't know if it's a multiple year process.
I think it is. And here's why. And why I get back to the lost generations of state basketball fans. And I'll tie this into Duke and Carolina, why I think there's like this weird tree in the branches that go with it. When I moved here in 1995, and having not grown up here, I didn't understand why there was this like fervor over 1983. Because at 16 years old, 1983 was a millennium. Okay.
Yeah.
I was 4.
Right.
I don't remember any of that stuff. Like, I'm a baby. The 80s were a distant memory at that point. I was 16. But for those who were in their 40s, 1983 was pretty much 2 weeks ago in their brains. And now that I've gotten older, as I approach 45, and I think about things that you and I have talked about and covered over the years, in my mind, man, 2005 is not that long ago. Not if you go look at an old picture of Roy Williams. Oh, man, that was a long time ago. If you look at a picture of yourself when you're 26, not 16, man, oh, man, that was a really long time ago. 2010. I mean, in my mind, I'm in Indianapolis doing Radio Row, man.
You had a great view of Gordon Hayward's shot.
Incredible view. I remember like it was yesterday. The guy who won a national championship as a player is now the coach of Duke. That's a long damn time ago. I see it when I go to Chapel Hill and they put up the I'm a Tar Heel stuff. And I'm expecting a pop for a guy like Antoine Jameson. It's there.
They don't know.
It's there. I mean, you could tell by age. They put Kobe White on the damn screen. It's like, wah! Losing their minds. Okay. So the expectations have diminished over time to the point where you are here with NC State, and they've essentially lost a couple of generations of basketball fans that still exist at Duke, that still exist at Carolina, and all the changes that with the NIL and everything else. When Carolina goes through their changes, you have a guy like Harrison Ingram or a Cormac Ryan that comes through, or a Brady Manick before that, or any number of other. I know you're making a face because you want to go Pete Nance, right? But there's hits and misses with recruits and transfers all the time. But my point still stands with this. When they arrive, there's a hell freaking yes. They adopt it. They adopt the program. Carolina fans are quick to bring those people on. Coach K trained Duke fans to understand the one and done stuff. So while you and I lament, well, what's this connection to college basketball? These guys are here for a year and they're gone. Doesn't matter, because when they are here, there's a give a damn level when they watch those teams. There's an expectation to win. Somewhere along the lines, and I don't know exactly when this happened, but somewhere along the lines, the expectation for state basketball to win has become so battered and tattered and beaten down that I think most fans now at NC State would just be happy to have a hook again. That's where they are right now. And that's up to Boo Corden to figure out what exactly he wants that state basketball program to be. I can see it going either way, by the way. I don't pretend to know what's going to happen.
No, I don't either.
I can see it going either way.
As I presented, it's a different conversation on a different level. You can, and people on last night were trying to yada, 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 the NCAA stuff. But the truth of the matter is they went through that together.
Yeah.
Boo and Kevin went through that together.
Yeah.
And it was positioned by NC State as, this is a new coach. This is a new AD.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do any of that stuff anymore. This isn't us.
Mm-hmm.
We want a clean slate. And I think Boo wants more credit for that NCAA win with that fight publicly, right? I think he's sitting there going, why didn't I get any credit for this? Now,
you know why?
I do know why, because all of the things that happened with the NCAA and the FBI case really just kind of did get yada, yada, yada.
No.
But also for Boo specifically, the people who are upset with Boo, it's over the NC State baseball situation in Omaha.
Sure.
That's where a lot of the discontent with him became. You know, so again, I say it's in his court. And now with that 5-year extension, he's been deputized by Randy Woodson, who's not going to be around. Okay. He's either going to retire on his own or he's going to be shushed out a little bit sooner because of the vote of no confidence from the faculty over there over the Poe Hall situation. So I think this conversation is really about Boo Corrigan. That's what it's about. And to your point, when does the clock start? In his head, when is the clock? In my head, the clock is the NIL era. And I always use Miami as the example. I look at Jim Larinaga, Hall of Fame coach, really good coach, in the Final Four last year. They're 6-12 in the ACC this year. It goes that fast, man. It moves that fast. So when you say it's a multi-year process, I don't look at it like that. I look at it as a year-to-year process. That's what I see.
Well, if it's a year-to-year process, and there's going to have to be a level of commitment from NC State that hasn't quite been there for basketball.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Like there is for football. I mean,
the interesting thing about that.
Because look at what NC State did in the transfer portal this past year to get ready for this upcoming season.
Because the first year of NIL, Kevin went and got Jarkel Joyner. Kevin paid to Cravion Smith. Excuse me. The collective money was used on those two players specifically.
Sure.
Okay. Dave went back to state and went, wait a second. Why'd you spend all this money on basketball and there's no commitment to football? And so this year, it's flipped.
Yeah.
All of that money has now gone into the football team. So, you know, this is there's a financial equation here. Again, the $5 million you owe Kevin, fine. You might think you can swallow that. The $5 million you're probably going to need to get a coach. You're going to have to not only come up with that. Their NIL budget this year is about $1 million for basketball. That's good enough for like a mid-major or like a mid-tier Big East team.
Yeah.
That's not good enough.
That's what I'm saying.
For an ACC team.
That's what I'm saying.
Particularly one that's not going to get a Cooper Flag. You're not even going to get a Rob Dillingham.
Yeah, but it doesn't even have to be that. No, Rob Dillingham.
But maybe it does.
Yeah.
I think one of the things.
Well, here's the question. Why isn't Hunter Sallis, as much as everybody loves Hunter Sallis, or we love Hunter Sallis on the program, why isn't he at NC State? Like, it's those kind of things that you ask that question of a bigger picture with NC State and how they got to this point, which we'll put a pin in that because I do think there's an interesting timeline of events that we should get into because to kind of illustrate why NC State is in the position they're in.
Okay.
And why it'll be interesting to see how this plays out if there's a coaching search. But I did want to back up to something you said about Boo Corrigan, who wants credit. He wants credit for things. Like, is he lamenting behind the scenes why he doesn't want, what is he, me? Is he me? Because you know what lesson I learned a long time ago when it comes to that stuff is somebody who's been accused of being aloof. All right. I'm not aloof. I do give a damn. You've known me long enough to know that I do give a damn, for heaven's sake. Okay. I'm as stubborn as you actually said it to me the other day. It's like, sometimes I wonder if you're actually more stubborn than me.
You are.
I am. But I don't give that impression.
Right.
Okay. Boo's in the same boat as me when it comes to that. I don't give that impression. He doesn't give that impression. If you want credit, you got to learn the lesson that I learned a long time ago. You got to go put yourself out there. You got to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
So when somebody asks you to go on their radio show, when somebody asks you to come onto the podcast and it's like demure, no, you got to put yourself out there. If you don't want to play that game, fine, but don't complain behind the scenes about how you're not really getting the credit you feel you deserve. You don't put yourself out there to connect with the fans if that's the case. As much as I could sit here and tell you that Debbie did a lot of things wrong in how outward she was on social media about stuff, to the point where I actually thought it was a detriment to State, not a plus.
Was, but she felt it deep.
She felt it deep. If you don't show people that you feel it deep, well, then that's how you end up in the position you end up in, where people wonder, well, what the hell are you doing? Right? Isn't that the big lament for Boo Corrigan?
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing?
Yes.
Well, if you don't let people know what you're doing, well, then they're going to ask that question. It's really simple equations here, man. Real simple math. I learned that lesson a long time ago. Probably time for Boo Corrigan to figure out that lesson too. You want the credit? Put yourself out there, dude. It's that simple.
Housekeeping.
All right. Big thanks to Inovana for sponsoring Ovias and Giglio. They actually came out to the house today. Texted me. We're 15 minutes out. Awesome. Told the kids, hey, clean a little bit of this stuff up. All right. Let's get ready. And they were there. Always do a great job. You can book them today at ENOVANA.com. Inovana Green Cleaning. You can do a one-time cleaning. You can do recurring cleanings. You can gift cleanings,
Ooh.
which is amazing. So again, go check them out. Inovana.com.
All right, so I put Bud in charge of a jingle, and at the risk of spoiling it,
all right,
he sent me one little turn of phrase here. If you have a mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it spring clean with Inovana.
Oh man,
it's got potential.
I do love that. I love that. Speaking of potential, we have potential to have a fun time at Longleaf Swine on March 21st. Come out, hang with us. Starting at 1 o'clock, we'll do the live show, but come a little bit earlier to get some lunch. Maybe we'll even buy a bourbon at Longleaf Swine as we get ready for our big basketball bracket bonanza.
It's a lot of bees, and there will be bourbon. Of course, we'll do that legally, but they have the gold. The gold?
Yeah, the Blanton's Gold.
Blanton's Gold.
I haven't had that yet.
Neither have I.
So I'm going to try it.
Looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Big thanks to Breeze Through for sponsoring Obies and Gilio. Check them out. breezethrough.com. Locations across the triangle. PNC Arena location getting that work. Going to carry a lot as well for various reasons. The Breeze Through locations there, getting the work. Get the McDee's through. You get the one off Chapel Hill Road. Again, locations everywhere in North Carolina. Great coffee. They've got great snacks, great beer selection, and most importantly, 76 gas.
Yeah, sometimes we forget they have gas.
Gas is kind of important.
Got to know the fastball.
This is true. Speaking of fastballs, Whitaker and Hamer has the fastball when it comes to your legal needs. Attorneys and counselors at law. Check them out at wh.lawyer. Again, that's wh.lawyer. You know what? I hit the wrong one. I'm rusty.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Oh, it's that time. We got the DraftKings. We got the promo code OG24. And we've got my terrible $10 why not parlay plays of the day. Thanks to everybody who messaged me yesterday when NC State was not up on Duke at halftime. There goes your parlay, Joe.
0 for 1. I was 0 for 1 too.
No big deal.
Rangers led early but couldn't hold on against the Panthers. So we both start in the same place. Oh
yeah. Yeah. All right. So what is your play of the day?
All right. My play of the day is to drink some water.
Uh-oh. You okay over there?
I had this problem last night as well.
Oh, no.
Trying to do live after dark.
I hate when that happens.
I know. My play of the day is going to be, I actually have multiple plays.
Okay. That's fine.
And
we have no rules here with the exception of just reading the disclaimer.
Yeah. Like I said, we're new to gambling. Okay. If you are new to gambling,
you are not new to gambling.
If you're new to gambling,
I am new to gambling.
I'm going to say this. If you're new to gambling,
yeah,
you can have paralysis by analysis when you try to pick like, oh man, what's going to be my best bet today? Okay. And then you might have, I wrote down 4 bets here. All right. So I'm going to give you 3 of those bets and let's see how many of those hit.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
In hockey, when a goalie plays his former team, you should always bet on that player, that goalie.
All right.
All right. So Cormac Ryan tonight, and Carolina plays Notre Dame. Notre Dame is where Cormac Ryan transferred from. I believe he will have a big game tonight. His player prop, a prop is a bet about what a player's performance is going to be, a proposition. His total is 11.5. I'm going over. I got another bet from that game. Armando Bacot, for real, is having senior night. This is it.
Yes.
No more games at the Smith Center.
This is it.
It's
a wrap.
While his pattern has been to pour it out in the big games, and make no mistake, Notre Dame is not a big game. I still think in his last game at the Smith Center, he will at least score 20 points tonight. 20.
You know.
The book says he will only score 12.5. I think that is the easiest of easy money in the history of gambling. I would take Armando Bacot's over individually over 12.5 points. Last one. Illinois is a team that I'm considering to pick to win the national championship. I think they're that good. They are playing Purdue at home tonight. They will pour it out in the first half, especially. I like Illinois in the first half minus -0.5 point.
You ready for my in-game parlay tonight for North Carolina, Notre Dame?
I am. Let me write this down.
All right. So my $10 will go to a 3-thing parlay in the game. So Notre Dame.
Same game parlay.
Same game parlay. I'll get the terminology right eventually. Notre Dame plus 9.5.
I like that.
North Carolina over 76.5.
All right. So if you are new to gambling, yes, you can bet on it's called a team total. So independent of the spread, independent of the full game total, you can bet on a team's total. Carolina's is set at 76.5. I like it. You're going over.
And UNC to win by 10 to 13 points.
That's a really difficult needle to thread,
Plus
as you learned yesterday.
Plus 450.
There's a reason it's plus 450. All right. I like the first two legs of that. Parts of parlays are called a leg.
Yeah.
I like the first two legs of that. The third one, you really are just trying to throw a penny into
scared money don't make money.
That's fair.
So that will get me. My $10 will get me, if I hit all three, $160.
160. All right. I like it.
My goal with these parlays is to win enough money to buy you a new computer.
I like that too.
I need new production for that, I think. You know, 2 parlays pay for Joe's new computer. That's the way to go about it. Is it time?
Joe Ovius, 25-year radio veteran. You stumbled yesterday. You were rusty yesterday. Here is your shot at redemption, sir.
Here we go. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and sign up with code OG24 to get up to $300 in bonus bets once mobile sports betting goes live. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, coming soon to North Carolina on March 11th with code OG24. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 8777-185543 or visit morethanagame.nc.gov. 21 plus, North Carolina only, new customers only, subject to regulatory licensing requirements, maximum $300 in bonus bets, not available for use until March 11th, 2024. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit, wagering, and eligibility restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook/NC. Let's go.
That was an A, sir. An A, not only on improvement, but also in delivery. Yeah, with DraftKings, please remember, use that code OG24. Also remember, when you're earning those bonus bets up to $300, you do need to be a new customer. So people like me who've been driving to Virginia do not qualify. So do yourself a favor. Get yourself into that account. And gamble responsibly as well. Only bet what you can afford to lose.
Oh yeah, Duke. Remember them? They won last night.
They just keep winning. They just keep winning.
Look, we only have 2 years of data with John Shire, but I'm noticing a pattern in the first 2 years with John Shire. Whether it's through injuries, whether it's through their own decisions to work a bunch of different lineups, like we saw at times last year, John Shire now has a Duke team that is quietly looking pretty damn good going into the last game of the season against North Carolina at Cameron Indoor Stadium. I'm at the point where I'm expecting Duke to win this game in a classic Giglio old school ACC. You got me at your place. Now we're going to get you at our place. I also think as the season has progressed, we really don't have much in terms of the questions of whose team is this? Who is driving the bus? And as we saw last night, it really is Jared McCain who has, as the kid would say, locked in. He looked really good last night. He has continued to look good, along with Mark Mitchell, Tyrese Proctor being healthy. You can overcome Kyle Filipowski's issues if Sean Stewart's also going to give you some quality minutes as well. Duke, like last year, has a depth almost by no decision of their own. They kind of had to work through all these things. But I've always been curious, it'll eventually pay off if everybody's on the court at the same time. And we're starting to see that as we approach the middle of March.
Yeah, I'm watching Duke in person last night. You realize what the national guys see. They don't have a Jason Tatum. They don't have Zion Williamson.
No.
They don't have this conspicuous 5-star absolute home run, no doubter. They do have one of those coming next year in Cooper Flagg. They don't have one right now. That doesn't mean the year is a total waste for Duke. I suspect they'll win 2 games in the NCAA tournament, and their post problems will cause them to be eliminated. But when Proctor plays like he did, particularly in the first half last night, You combine that with McCain and Mitchell and Roach, by the way, quietly.
He continues to be quietly,
even without those 3-pointers going. That older guy who kind of gives you a little bit of a steady hand. That's a good thing. But they're not a dynamic team by any stretch of the imagination.
They know that too.
Yes.
The one thing that John Shire has consistently done in this last 2 years, they know what they are. It's a matter of they can just go out and execute what they are. And right now, they've been looking pretty good along the way.
Yeah, they've won 8 of their last 9 since the loss in Chapel Hill. I don't see them winning over in Chapel Hill just because that's normally the game where the winner emerges and goes to the Final Four. I do think that is Carolina. And again, I think Baycott is part of that problem for them. You can only get so many minutes out of Ryan Young against Baycott. But ultimately, John Shire, the mark of a good coach is a team that always improves as the season goes along. One of the highest compliments I ever paid Roy Williams was your team always gets better as the year goes. That's all they ever want to hear, by the way.
Yes. And that's what they're doing it too.
It drives them crazy when their team doesn't do that.
Well, that's why NC State finds themselves in the position they're in. To get back to what we talked about, they looked like they had kind of righted things, got themselves back in the mix, and they've only won 1 game since. And it's just not good enough at NC State. Which I want to get back to what you said about, say, Justin Gainey. Yeah. Bring Justin Gainey home to NC State. But watch Tennessee. I think, as you said, watch Tennessee go on a Final Four run, and Rick Barnes hangs this thing up, and Justin Gainey's the next coach, right?
Yeah, at Tennessee. Yeah.
Isn't that NC State's entire history post Valvano?
It's been a pattern of what ifs, right? Moving the gemstones, going all the way back to when Les Robinson retired.
Isn't that kind of how it's been for NC State? I mean, do we want to do a Cliff Notes version of how things? We can. I think we can nail this in
all right.
A little bit.
I'll try to be succinct.
All right. So Jim Valvano, it's done. It's a wrap. Les Robinson comes in. Things don't go well for Les Robinson. It's the Les Robinson Invitational, but he sees fit to be like, all right, man, I'm out. He goes on to be the I forgot what level
he
of
was
AD
like
he
the
was.
Special assistant to the regional manager, but then ends up becoming the AD,
the actual AD. But what could have happened after Les Robinson?
So Todd Turner, famously NC State's athletic director, a Carolina guy, was brought in after Valvano. You kind of yada Valvano's ending, but we don't need to really get that right now.
I mean, how many times do we need to go over that?
It's fine. It's fine.
I'm just saying. We only have so much time in the podcast.
It's part of it.
And it's also been told a bazillion times. So we don't need to, that's just like fast forward through that.
I got you. So Todd Turner is the AD, Carolina guy. Speaking of people who were never accepted by NC State fans, he wanted to hire Billy Donovan, who was at Marshall.
Oh.
Billy Donovan instead took the Florida job.
Yeah.
Okay. So Billy Donovan, of course, goes on to win back-to-back national titles with the Gators, 07, 08. He's now in the NBA. I think it's fair to say if Billy Donovan was hired by NC State, even with Mike Krzyzewski in the tough neighborhood, even with Dean Smith in the tough neighborhood, I think it's fair to say that Billy Donovan would have won the ACC at least once. I also think it's fair to say if he did win the ACC, he probably would have taken another job for more money. Right? I don't think Billy Donovan would have been there for 20 years. While he's going after Billy Donovan, Billy's like, hey, man, this is great. I think it's a great job. And then Billy Donovan's like 35 or whatever he is at the time. It's a great job. Hey, if you don't like it, I don't want it, but you should hire my friend, Herb Sendek. So he did. The next one, I'm not even going to get into Calipari in 05.
That's another story that's been told a bazillion times.
I'm not even going to get into that because I don't really know how serious he ever. I know people were like, no, he was going to. I'm not even going to get into Calipari.
Although the John Beeline story is even more hilarious.
I'm not even going to get into Beeline as much as he would have fit in for the style and the roster and all those other things.
Yeah.
The next one I'll go to is Shaka Smart. I think Debbie Howe was absolutely right in 11 to hire Shaka Smart and pursued Shaka Smart. That was the one. After a couple of no's, she had targeted young guy, DC, Baltimore, Virginia roots, had really tough players, tough guards. When you look at NC State and their success has been tied to DC, DeMatha players. Like, I think Shaka would have absolutely done, I think as a young guy, she could have given him a bunch of money to leave VCU. I think it would have been a smash home run. He goes from the first 4 to the final 4.
Whoops.
And it's like, now all of a sudden he's like, well, if VCU's like, well, we'll give you a little bit of a raise. And then you have the Gary Williams sabotage, which is what that was the comment was directly referencing Shaka Smart. So he doesn't, end up being the coach. One of the other guys during that search, at least mentioned, was Jim Larinaga.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Too old.
But he's too old.
Oh, just like John Beeline was too much like the other guy. He's too much like her.
Listen, I get it.
You noticing a pattern here? You noticing a pattern here?
I get it.
But you're noticing a pattern, right?
So I wonder, when we talk about where NC State could be, did they have the right coach? Did they have, because can you just snap your fingers and hire a Hall of Famer? No, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. But I'm glad you went through a very quick synopsis of how these things have gone. There's a lot more issues to NC State and how they've ended up in this point that go beyond me yada-yadaing what happened after Jim Valvano.
Right.
Y'all, it's been 35 plus years. I've lost track of how long it is. Damn near 40 years in the grand scheme.
Well, 90 was Valvano's last year, so 34.
Okay, so 34 years, right? My math is terrible. So it's been a really long time. And like, well, how do we overcome this? Well, other schools have? Like, I mean, I don't want to be terse about this, but like other schools have. If there's a want to factor, but there's always this weird push and pull at NC State with basketball that kind of leads to this point. I do wonder if, as things have evolved over time, they get beyond what once was and where things are now.
I think all of those other hires, you had the giant wall of you have to get through Carolina and Duke.
How does that change? How does that change, though?
I think it's changed now.
How?
First of all, Mike and Roy or Dean, the two guys who are there now, are not them. Okay,
sure,
they're not them,
but they're still an apparatus.
Sure, but it's not the same. It's not the same.
Okay,
but also now, I think the dynamic changes. You have to be concerned, number one, about the future of the conference and where NC State is going to be.
Yeah,
and also college basketball is now a year-to-year proposition, and that is where money matters. Money matters. Okay, that gets to your point about investment and what do you want to be?
What do you want to be?
Do you want to? Because you don't have enough money to be both.
No,
you're not Ohio State. You're not Texas. You're not Georgia.
Yeah, and even schools that have money to be both,
and even Georgia doesn't want basketball.
Well, look at Texas. Texas has all the money in the world, and they still find themselves bumping up against it, and they just can't do it. Anyway, we can put a pin in that conversation because we'll clearly have it at a later date and have some more time on it. Because the whole business of just wait for Roy and Kay to go away and next thing you know, you have an opportunity. No, guys, the apparatus is always going to be there. Duke and Carolina are truly invested in being basketball programs. That's not going to change.
I'm not going to deny that.
That's not going to change.
But there is a difference at Carolina and Duke without those respective coaches. There is.
Check out Homefield. It is third month mania at homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code OG23 to save 15% off your order. They got a lot of great basketball items that are going up every single day. And they're also taking suggestions. We had a listener point out as they were reading this Beastie Boys book, a picture, I believe, of MCA wearing an App State basketball shirt like in 1986. I immediately forwarded that to Homefield being like, I know you guys have App State stuff, but do you have this? Like, no, but noted, saving this for later. So you never know. Maybe you'll see an inspired App State basketball shirt in the future. Speaking of App State.
I see that pennant.
Like that pennant, Joe? New pennant in the background.
I'm allowed to mark that one up, or?
What are you going to? No.
Oh, okay.
I spent good money on that pennant. You know how hard it was to find a back-to-back championship pennant?
All right.
For App State football?
Lost the 3-9 check them out, but it's fine.
Homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code OG23. Do you want big blessings on your home?
Yes.
Whether it's buying or selling?
Nah,
Hometown Realty, because they brought blessings to. I'm going to credit the 12UA Elite CHL Championship to Hometown because I saw it just in the distance, just beaming upon me like sunshine. Oh, you will win. You can win in the real estate game. Go to Hometown Realty.
Yeah, and not just when you buy. I think it's important. We think, oh man, I watched a YouTube video on how to replace a sink, and voila. Oh man, I watched a YouTube video on the complications of selling my house, and I don't want to pay an agent 3%.
No.
Stop with your nonsense and maximize your profits. Go to the experts. Go to Hometown Realty. Go to myhtr.com.
Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, Luke DeCock, columnist, News and Observer. And yesterday, Luke, Joe and I were talking about the Carolina Hurricanes, buried in all the basketball stuff. Peter Kochetkov gave up a goal that Rod Brind'Amour was not happy about. And the Canes cough up a 3-0 lead and lose to the Winnipeg Jets. And it's the same week as the trade deadline, which means we got to do something right now, Luke. It's clear. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think the Canes are just kind of stuck with their goalie situation right now, and there's really nothing they can do with the trade deadline to help themselves out. Is that portrayal off base?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, I think if you were to look at this in the really cold light of reason and rationale, is do you want to put yourself in an elimination game where your choices are a Antti Ranta, an injured Frederik Andersen, have lost the plot Pyotr Kochetkov, which we've seen, or Spencer Martin, a guy you grab. If Freddie's playing well, this is easy, but there's no guarantee in the world that Freddie's going to be playing well or healthy. That's just the Freddie Andersen experience at this point. The Pyotr Kochetkov experience is, he's Peter the Puck Dodger. He's a crazy Russian. You don't know what you're going to get from this guy. He's a terrific, talented goalie. He's got an incredible personality. The players love him, but he just goes on these mental walkabouts where you're like, what is this guy doing? Like, why are you trying to stop the on-rushing forward with your head? It just like, what's going on here? That worries me, right? It'd be one thing if this were 2019 and the Hurricanes were entering their championship cycle, but we're 6 years into this now, 5 years into this now. They haven't gotten over the top. They haven't even gotten to the Stanley Cup Finals. At a certain point, you have to say, when are we going to push all our chips to the middle of the table? When are we actually going to swing instead of taking pitches and hoping to get walked? And I think that's what's going on with the goalie situation. You're basically, look, we got 4 guys. We can't move 4 guys. What are we going to do? Freddie's fine if he's healthy. Peter can win game. Like, they're just have sort of talked themselves into the idea that one of these 4 guys will play well enough to win in the playoffs. And I think, so this is the no part of your question. I think, or maybe the yes, I've lost track. But either way, this is the flip side.
Yeah.
There is some validity to that. You've got 4 different guys. One of them has to play well in any given moment. But my feeling is, and Joe and I have talked about this, and I've written about this, wouldn't you rather have as your second option behind Freddie a veteran guy that you feel like you can trust a little bit, even if his numbers haven't been as good this year? Wouldn't, since Marc-Andre Fleury is off the market, let's use him. Wouldn't you feel more comfortable with a Marc-Andre Fleury as your second option than either of these 3 guys who, look, Antti Ranta is a great dude. Everybody loves him. Kachekhov's a fun, nutty guy. Everybody loves him. Spencer Martin's been a great story. Everybody loves him. Like, nothing against these guys. It's not personal. But wouldn't you feel more comfortable saying, hey, we've got this very talented, very fragile number 1 goalie who, by the way, still hasn't played since November or whatever it is. Wouldn't you feel more comfortable with the goalie? That said, the market's terrible. People are holding out for big returns for a guy you may not even play. And the guys who are out there who are good, their contract situations are terrible. Like, and the Hurricanes have 2 goalies under contract for next year already. So if you do make a move with a guy who's got money for next year, now you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to have to make another move to clean things up. So the goalie situation, do I think they need to do something? I think they do. Do I understand why they're not going to? Absolutely. And that does make sense to me. I just think if we're talking about this 2 months from now saying, wow, boy, they really should have gone and gotten anybody. Yeah. Then, that's another year where your inaction at the trade deadline has played a critical role in failing to play for the Stanley Cup.
The Stanley Cup playoffs are littered with stories of goalies who have come out of nowhere and done big things. I mean, it happened to the Carolina Hurricanes last year with Bobrovsky and the Florida Panthers. And the reason why I've been pushing back on the goalie trade talk is because of you, as you just laid out, the market sucks. So if you're trying to put yourself in a better position in the playoffs, you can go address some things you haven't had the last couple of years because you've been hit with injuries. You haven't had a true crack at this thing, as Joe likes to say, with your key guys who you invested in, Andrei Svechnikov being the biggest one, right? Or last year with Max Pacioretty being hurt right out of the gate. It is what it is. So wouldn't it be better to use your assets, if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, to go out and get another goal scorer, because I know there's other ways to win. You can just score one more than the other team. If you've got a dude that can actually finish, which has been a problem for the Carolina Hurricanes in the postseason as well.
Yeah, I think they're two separate questions, because the Hurricanes do have the assets in the cap space to make both moves if they want to.
Okay.
The question is there a guy like that out there who can actually score goals in the playoffs? I'm not sure there is, who's better than what the Hurricanes have. I do think there is a need, based on what happened last year and all that, for forward depth, for a legit NHL forward, preferably a right shot, who can play on the power play. There is a need for that. But again, at what cost? And, who are you bumping out of the lineup? But I think the idea is, if a guy gets hurt, if someone slashes Teravainen on the thumb again, are we dipping into our call-ups from whatever AHL teams we've farmed them out to? Or do we have a veteran guy who can step in, or does that veteran guy already in the lineup and, somebody else steps in? You have to assume there are going to be injuries. So plan for them now, and don't keep your fingers crossed for 3 months and hope no one gets hurt. So I think there is a need there. I think there's probably an appetite to get a deal done. The problem is, you start digging into this stuff and getting into the details of it. Like, there are maybe 4 right shot forwards who can help them. They all have a worse face-off percentage than the Hurricanes guys do on their off wings. So, like, you're not actually upgrading there. But I think the depth argument is good. And also, if it's a guy with some skill who can play on the power play, having another right shot does give you more options, especially on that second unit. And as we saw last year, a power play that was 3% better, and they might be playing Vegas in the Stanley Cup Finals. Like, the margins are very fine. So if you can make a move, it can pay dividends down the road.
I'm laughing to myself here because I'm listening to you talk. I 100% know for sure that Jim Rutherford would trade for Max Pacioretty. I 100% know for sure. Like, that would be the number one thing he would do. Like, when you're saying, hey, this guy could help this, and this. Oh, who could we go get? And Jimmy was just like me. I was right all along about this guy. Do it. I knew it. But look, back to the goalies though. Legitimately, I'm curious. You know more about this stuff than I do. Juicy Saros. What is the feasibility of getting him from Nashville, and at 28 and as a Finn? It feels like a match made in heaven to me, Luke, but I don't know how much, what it would cost, and then where he would kind of fit in their long-term plans.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think to me, I'm with you. I think if you can get a guy like UC Saros and sort of remove all doubt from the equation, because the thing about goalies in the NHL is there are 4 or 5 or 6 guys who you actually can count on year to year who have proven, Shesterkin and Saros, and there's a very limited pool of those goalies. Everybody else, you're rolling the dice every year, right? So what are we going to get this year? Even Freddie. So yes, now Nashville's playing really well right now. They just re-signed Novak, who's a guy they were going to trade. I don't know whether Saros re-signs or not there in this cycle. At the end of the year here, but I think he wants to stay. I think he likes the direction they're headed under Barry Trotz. If he gets to July 1st, so I don't think a trade's in the works, right? And not that they could carry UC Saros' salary among 5 goalies now anyway. Is he a perfect fit to me for the Hurricanes on July 1st? Absolutely. A Saros-Kochetkov tandem looks pretty good to me. That means moving Freddie. I think you could, to a team like New Jersey or Columbus that would love a veteran guy in a 1-year deal while they figure out their long-term plans. But that's, again, there's no guarantee you can move Freddie, and then you have 3 goalies under contract. So, and there's no guarantee Saros signs here. And with all of the cap issues the Hurricanes are going to have, they're going to have to rebuild their defense to some degree, depending on what happens with Shea and Pesci. That they've got to figure out what they're going to do with Marty Necas from a contract situation. That's still hanging out there. They bought some time on that because he had the terrible year 2 years ago, but now you're revisiting that. Can you lock yourself into $8.5 million a year for 10 years on UC Saros? And does that foreclose you from keeping the rest of the team together? And is the opportunity cost there good enough that you say, okay, if we have UC Saros, maybe we don't need the deepest defense in the league. Maybe we can cut some corners there because we won't be on pins and needles every time we give up a scoring chance when we're out shooting the other team 28-3 and we're down 2-1.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. And maybe I got a little Jim Rutherford in me with the I've been right
Max,
all along.
we really like Max. We think he's.
I can't wait for that to happen.
So, this was something that plagued the Washington Capitals for the longest time. They go to the playoffs, they would outshoot everybody. They'd have way more scoring chances, and they would still find themselves out early in the playoffs and everything else like that. We get, you just said, yeah, we just outshot this other team by X amount. We're on pins and needles about the goalie and whether or not he's going to stop this one. Sometimes you look at why do you keep producing these chances and they don't actually go in. That's the consistency with the Carolina Hurricanes throughout this entire run. How does that change? Because I'm actually at a point where I'm getting a little sick of, look at all the high danger chances and look at all these. We outshot them 58-2. And right, but why didn't the puck go in the freaking net, guys?
I mean, you just summed up the Florida series in like 8 seconds.
Yes.
Right? Oh, yeah, Bobrovsky played great. There's no question that Bobrovsky.
Well, why does it keep happening that they have?
Because finishing is a talent, and they don't have enough of it. Now, they've become one of the best teams in the league by substituting volume for quality.
Yeah.
But when Andrei Svechnikov isn't scoring, and let's be perfectly frank about this. Yes, he was hurt last year.
Yeah.
And yes, he's been hurt again this year and all that. He has to score goals. Like, this team is not built for Andrei Svechnikov to score 23 goals. He has the talent to be a 50 to 60 goal scorer in this league. And we've seen it in the past. We have not seen it this season. Now, again, he has a million excuses, but he has to play like that in the playoffs. If he had been healthy and available and played like that against Florida, that is a different series. Two goals changes that series completely. I would expect Andrei Svechnikov to score 2 goals in a 7-game playoff series.
You'd hope, yeah.
You hope. I mean, that's what you're paying him for. That's what you're going to continue to pay him for.
Why he has that money?
I mean, it's not like you're paying him a lot because he has good hair and you like having him around. And
here's the other thing too. Joe, Giglio keeps bringing up this other gear that Sebastian Aho has shown you at times here. Again, those are other things. Like you've invested a lot of money in Sebastian Aho to elevate that game and take that next step. Does he have it? Does he have that gear in the postseason?
I think if you really break down Sebastian Aho's total game, 200-foot game in the postseason, he has delivered that. Like, he's a unbelievable two-way player in the postseason in a way that is he going to be an offensive superstar, 110 points, point per game in the postseason? Is he going to put up Eric Stahl in 2006 numbers? I don't know that he will. Maybe if he's playing on a line with guys who really finish, which he doesn't always have. But I also think that you are paying him to be Sebastian Aho, and that's a player who really does help you win in the playoffs and makes everyone around you better. Now, Marty Necas, Andrei Svechnikov, Michael Bunting, you are being paid to finish these chances, right? We're not paying Teuvo Teravainen this money because we think he's going to score 40 goals. We're paying him this money because we think he's going to possess the puck and create the chances for people like you to knock in. And why are we paying Steph Nason $1.5 million or whatever to score 12 goals, and we're paying you $6 million to score 13 goals?
Exactly.
The name of the game, it's like, I mean, you get back to it. The name of the game is to put the puck in the net.
Yeah,
that's what matters, and keep it out. They do a decent enough job keeping it out. Like, you look at the goals against average. You should win a lot of games when you have 40 shots a night. So it is, to your point, Joe, yes, why invest in goaltending when it's the finishing that's the issue? And the answer is because finishing is really expensive and hard to find. And you get it with the second pick in the draft, or you get it with the 12th pick in the draft. You get it with wherever they stole Seth Jarvis from the league. But those guys also need to produce. And they haven't in the playoffs.
I think I'm at the point, we'll close on this. I'm at the point where it's finally, it's time to unveil the hockey segment I've been wanting to do.
Oh,
you, me, Luke, Mike Maniscalco, we're going to do If This Team Were in Toronto.
Yes.
It's time. Yes. It is time to crack that open as we approach the playoffs. Do a segment called If This Team Was in Toronto, because
they are right now. They are throwing the Marty Necas subs on the floor in the Harris Teeter Deli.
Yep,
they're buying them just to slam them on the floor and put it on TikTok.
Telling you, man,
this sandwich tastes like failure, eh?
Look, I love the Canes, man. I love talking about the Canes. I love going to see the Canes. They're a great organization, but sometimes it's like you understand that you have it on easy street here. You understand that, right?
I mean,
yeah, the Kotkov goal from the other day would
take anything.
Oh, gosh.
To the extent you can take anything that Paul Maurice says seriously.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the Kochetkov goal is basically, where's the Zamboni driver? Bring him in.
I mean,
he's going to stop that.
Paul, like Paula had some great lines about, when I came back from Toronto, I kind of missed that pressure. Like, give me a break. Stop it. Miss that pressure any more than spending 1 year coaching in Russia allowed you to understand European players.
The man probably faced more pressure as the coach of the Marlies than he did when he was the coach of the Canes, for heaven's sake. But anyway, it's neither here nor there.
Anyway, it's a good segment. I like it.
All
hey,
right.
By the way, I would be remiss if I didn't say I'm excited tonight for Armando Bacot having the first ever actual senior night. 50. After the game, he gets to go to Harris Teeter. He gets 10% off all his groceries.
I'm sure they're actually trying to find a way to see if he can come back one more year. We'll see. We shall see. All right, Luke. We'll talk to you later, man. Went really high pitched there with Luke. Took a little something out of me. If you know what will help for my throat? Ice cream. Ice cream. Two Roosters ice cream. Welcome aboard, Two Roosters. Check them out, tworoosters.com. They've got locations across the triangle. And when you go to the websites, you can see what flavors they've got on that particular day, that particular week.
Are you telling me I have to now order something other than the bourbon coffee?
You don't have to. I noticed at my home base, the one on Person Street, they still have the bourbon coffee. Just saying.
I like to stick to a flavor or an order and just stay in that lane. But I've been learning. I've been learning at the arena.
Mm-hmm.
I got the cookie dough. I got some sprinkles. They, of course, have the Stormy Tracks at the arena, which is their #1 seller there.
There's a reason why there's a line.
And there's also a reason because they're really, really good. So you should check them out, not only at PNC, but over on Leadmine. And, of course, the OG center of the universe, Lake Boone. Yeah,
they also have ice cream cakes, too. All sorts of great stuff. Oh, you didn't know that?
Oh, I did not know they had ice cream cakes.
Dude.
We are definitely having an ice cream cake on our birthday party.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make that happen. Again, go to tworoosters.com. Speaking of Lake Boone, the unofficial shopping plaza of the OG, check out the Butcher's Market. New location there. Locations across the triangle. And I know that this weekend, I'm going to be doing the lazy thing and getting some prepared meals to take care of the week.
So
because I'm not going to be at home.
Yeah,
it's going to be ACC tournament time. Make it super easy. Just heat up some stuff. I had the manicotti the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Italian enchiladas. I think they're fantastic.
So Kenneth, for the OG tailgate, made us the maple chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Now I got a new favorite.
That is good stuff.
Every time I get something, it's my new favorite over there. It's unbelievable.
Again, go check it out. butchersmarkets.com. Every time we think we're not going to talk about the NFL, they find a way to pull us back in, Joe. And it finally happened. We all knew it was going to happen. It's just official now. The Panthers have placed the franchise tag on Brian Burns. His tag number is $24 million fully for 1 season. Joe Person over at The Athletic, adding a little bit more context. It's a non-exclusive tag, so Burns can negotiate with other teams. Panthers have the right to match any offer. If they don't, they get 2 first-round picks. So I don't see that happening. Maybe there was a time in which somebody would have given up 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns based on the reports you may or may not believe. But I think the ship has sailed for Brian Burns and those 2 first-round picks. I don't think that they're going to – I don't think anybody's matching this, even with the salary cap going up.
I think it's important, though, the ship hasn't sailed on Brian Burns.
No,
they changed their defensive alignment last year, and I don't think it was a great fit for him. And then he was dealing with all this contract stuff, as we've seen with the Hurricanes. Guys who have to deal with that. Also, Brian Burns is still pretty young.
Yeah,
I think he is a difference maker. I don't think this is a move that will hurt the Carolina Panthers. I think this is one they certainly need to figure out a long-term solution. But the way that the NFL works, this is the smart play.
Yeah, I think the problem that we have with the Carolina Panthers, and maybe we're a broken record with this, is that it's up to Dan Morgan and Dave Canales now to untangle years of mistakes that have piled up on top of each other.
Giving away assets for no reason. Yes.
So you're not going to fix that with one contract negotiation with Brian Burns. You know, in an ideal world, they would have signed Brian Burns to a long-term deal that would have made sense over time. You know my stance on this. I've been hammering this point all the way back to the Kirk Cousins Washington football team days, where if you had just signed Kirk Cousins to a long-term deal, you would have actually saved yourself money over time. Instead, Kirk Cousins became the franchise tag king and made money on top of money on top of money.
Stacks on stacks.
So it always, if you feel that these guys are cornerstones of your franchise, you will make the salary cap numbers work, and ultimately those numbers will end up looking good for you down the line. I think the ship has sailed for Brian Burns as a long-term solution for the Carolina Panthers. I really do. Because I think he'll probably ball out this upcoming season. Who's to say? And his contract will be worth even more, and somebody will pick him up somewhere else. So they could have had an opportunity to use Brian Burns either as a piece to rebuild around defensively, which I don't think is going to happen now, or they could have used him to get assets back, which they didn't do. And now they're in this weird nebulous spot that we've talked about a lot. Speaking of Kirk Cousins, I mean, he could end up in Atlanta, or Joe, the other bit of news. The Denver Broncos have made it officially known that they are moving on from Russell Wilson. We knew this at the end of last season, or towards the end of last season, when reports came out that Russell Wilson was approached about opting out of his contract so they can get out of this massive salary cap hit they're going to have to take. The Broncos end up having one of the worst trades for a QB that we've seen in recent memories. Back in March of 2022, they sent a package of players and picks to get Russell, 2 first-round picks, and it's been nothing. Now, this is the question for Russell Wilson. Is he washed? Or were the last 2 years in Denver more about the Denver Broncos? Because I think we all recognize that Nathaniel Hackett was the Broncos hiring a coach that they thought would bring Aaron Rodgers to the table, in the same way that the New York Jets hired Nathaniel Hackett to be the offensive coordinator so they wouldn't have to challenge Aaron Rodgers. They gave him what he wanted. So Nathaniel Hackett, I can easily view through the prism of, man, you really screwed up by hiring him as the head coach. And clearly they moved on from that. There was Sean Payton. This is not about whether Sean Payton is a Hall of Fame coach or not. If his one trick with the New Orleans Saints eventually went out the window when Drew Brees aged out of the position. It's about Sean Payton clearly not liking Russell Wilson and not wanting Russell Wilson to be his quarterback, to the point where he openly clowned him the minute he got there and the moment he was leaving in the combine. Remember, he was kind of joking about Russell Wilson at the combine, him no longer being the quarterback. It's going to cost him a lot of money to get rid of him. That's how badly they want him out of there. So again, I get back to that question. Is he washed, or was it a circumstantial thing with the Denver Broncos?
Yeah. Listen, we can't absolve Russ for his role in what happened there.
No, we can't.
Right? It's not all one. It's not all the other. I'll say this. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers broke our concept of what an older quarterback is going to be and how effective they can be. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. Tom Brady, 44. Brees, 42. Aaron this year will be 40.
But he's washed.
Could be. I think ultimately Russell Wilson and Cam Newton, while different in size, are similar quarterbacks in how they played the game and what made them great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think with Russell Wilson specifically, what made him great was his ability on third down to convert and extend drives with his legs. They weren't designed runs, and they weren't always runs. It was sometimes him scrambling around and improvising and picking up a first down with a pass. Other times it was him running and picking up with his legs. Cam Newton, 34 years old, is out of the NFL. Why? Because the cumulative effect of all of the hits that he took in the first 11 years of his career add up.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't be the same quarterback that you were in what made you great. Russell Wilson is trying to have a second act of his life at 35 years old. I absolutely think it is possible for him to be a game manager at this point in his career, to use Cam Newton's words. I absolutely think in Atlanta, where they have these young dynamic pieces. If he were to use his legs, obviously you can't turn back the clock.
No, you can't.
But I thought his unwillingness to run in Denver is what ultimately hurt him. Now, Atlanta, you're inside, you're in a dome, you're on a perfect track. You don't have the weather elements. You don't have all of those things.
You got weapons too, man.
And you have really good players. I think in that system, he could be outstanding. In Pittsburgh, where they have an outstanding defense, and Mike Tomlin will put him in a position where his new best asset is he doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's an asset. But the days of Russ improvising and moving around and extending drives and running, I think those days are over.
Does he get that?
That's going to be the big challenge for him in his second act here. Russ has this unbelievable ability to mentally will himself to success, even while others around him doubt him.
So that gets to my curiosity with Russell Wilson, because you and I, we did a podcast about it. You were around Russell during his time at NC State. We've kept up with people who've been around Russell Wilson. Clearly, there was a Russell Wilson when the shine was off, when they weren't winning the Super Bowl, when you've gotten further away from Seattle. His former teammates will be more than happy to tell you, yeah, he ain't that guy.
There's an authenticity issue is what he has.
Yes, but there's an authenticity issue with a lot of different guys in the NFL, particularly at that position. I mean, you want to talk about authenticity issues, I can bring up Aaron Rodgers again, and they've bent over backwards to make that guy happy. All right? The question that I have with Russell Wilson that only he can answer, and there's only one way to find out, is that's how he plays, is that he's done such a good job of willing himself mentally. It's like, what was that old book that used to have like late night commercials? It was called like The Wish or something like that. And the whole point of the book essentially was, if you dream it up, if you commit to manifesting it mentally, it will come to you. Okay. I think that was the name of the book. It was late at night. Who knows what I was on? I don't remember, but I remember that commercial, that and the Pure Moods commercial. Remember the Pure Moods commercial? Okay. I got to find that tape. Regardless, can Russell Wilson convince himself that if I want to win another Super Bowl, because remember, it's all about winning multiple Super Bowls. He told that to you long ago at NC State when he came back getting ready for the draft. Multiple Super Bowls. Well, he put himself in the right mental place to not only make the NFL, but win a Super Bowl and get to another one. But can he convince himself now that if I'm going to do it, I have to reinvent myself? And will you mentally put yourself in a position to commit to reinventing yourself, to drop the Broncos country, let's ride, to have the awareness that, you know what, a lot of the stuff I've done in the past has rubbed people the wrong way, but this is now a new me to get to my ultimate goal, and that's to get that second Super Bowl. I don't know. Is it
Reinventing, or is it understanding that you still need to use your legs?
But that's where we get into people's psyches, and I'm trying to be an armchair therapist here when it comes to Russell Wilson. I don't think Russell Wilson is capable of self-awareness. Russell Wilson strikes me as the type of person that you and I know people like this, where you can have conversations with him about, you need to do this. You need to, hey man, just so you know, I think this needs to happen in order for you to change, or why does this keep happening to me? I'm like, well, the reason why this keeps happening to you is because of X, Y, Z, right? But typically with people like that, in my experience, is that they, as narcissistic as they can be, they have decided, I am going to be the one that changes, not you. I never heard what you told me. I never heard what this person told me. No, see, I went out to a cabin in the woods and I'd self-reflected, and I decided.
Speaking of AA, Ron.
Right?
Yeah.
I decided that I'm going to be a different person. It was my decision. That's the mental gymnastics that Russell Wilson kind of goes through. And I'm not making that up, because we've seen that kind of stuff with Russell. But the man invented a story at a commencement speech, for heaven's sake. So who knows what he'll invent in his brain to get to that next chapter, to reinvent himself.
He doesn't even really need it, because he has a real life Denver. This is the first time that he has failed at something. This is the first time someone has told him no, and he has not proven to them, yes, I can do it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
So that's where his restart is. And again, I think ultimately, at 35-year-old Russell Wilson, Tom Brady never took the hits that Russell Wilson did. Drew Brees never took the hits that Russell Wilson did. So those guys, Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, they needed to square and realize early in their careers. Lamar Jackson is the same way. You're not going to play till you're 40. You're not going to play till you're 38. You're not going to play probably past 35. Cam got to 33. Russ, these last 2 years have mostly been disappointing.
If Sean Payton is Tom O'Brien,
which I said from the jump,
what accent will
ultimately
Russell Wilson give Sean Payton?
I can't wait.
Now, son, I just want to know what the story
Maybe he'll
is.
give him a Spanish accent. I can't wait.
Mira, hijo. No puede. I'm like, oh, that's Russell Wilson learned Spanish? Dang. All right, then. Big thanks to Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. Check them out. Bugsbite.com is the website. You can bundle and save. You can prepay, too. Like, you want to get in on the entire year's worth of mosquito treatments? And why wouldn't you? Because it's money. Hey, contact them, bugsbite.com, and get on that. Outside treatment with mosquito, inside treatment with Pest Authority, all at bugsbite.com.
Yeah, save yourself some money. Go to bugsbite.com, zap in that zip code, and you're on your way.
Also, big thanks to Matt Davis over at State Farm InsureGarner.com, the OGinsurance.com, 919-779-8277. Or if you're watching on YouTube, Chilio's holding up. He found the QR code again. He's holding it up to the camera. Just hold your phone up to that. It'll take you directly to Matt Davis. Somebody here in the triangle, you can call directly at 919-779-8277.
Do about the Wolfpack and Demon Deeks. They're calling again.
It's been brutal. From Spencer on YouTube, Kochetkov hasn't had an obvious of a blunder as this. Speaking of what happened.
No. Come on. The Colorado call. Stop.
I was going to say, Colorado. If you can't learn from this, then he will always be a liability. Hoping he's able to stay aggressive, also knowing when it's not worth the risk. Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, hopefully, with Kochetkov going forward. From Revisited, Gilio's got to call that number update. I've used pretty much all the apps. Okay. Yeah, that was a tell. That was a tell for you. From M. Davis, Joe, meaning me, you should record that DraftKings promo thing and just have it on a button. Hell no.
No.
We will do it live.
No, sir.
We will do it live.
It's a challenge now.
From JMA, Elliot Cadeau reclassified to be a one and done. He now has a second grade for 2025. Chapel Hill is where NBA drafts go to die. Look, Jay,
stop.
I get Jay's a Duke guy. Do we really want to play that game?
Yeah, come on.
You don't want to play that game. Also, I'm pretty sure that when Cadeau did reclass, it was not a one and done situation. It was not.
No, it's not where he is physically.
No, it's not. From Brandon Barry, UNC needs to avoid Roy's Kansas in the bracket. You could put a junior high team in Roy's Kansas uniforms and UNC would lose. Dang,
I can't argue.
Dang.
I can't argue.
That's pretty harsh. So, yeah, Law of the Wolf was popping last night on the chat and on the comments. From Ronald, a Duke fan here. I was struck last night that Keatts didn't adjust down the stretch. Duke was content to let Burns beat the ball into the floor and let him put up contested twos later in the shot clock. Needed to change that pace. It never happened. Fair enough. Let's see. From John Henry, I believe it might be best for NC State and Keatts to separate after the season and let everybody get a fresh start. I don't disagree with that. With that said, I like Keatts. Again, I don't disagree with that either. He's been a good representative of the program. It's hard being an ACC team in the triangle when you've got Carolina and Duke. How could they ever? Let's see. From this, I do agree with the J Nerds blog. Anyone saying he can't coach in terms of Kevin Keatts is rewriting history. There's a reason he was chosen to come here given his previous performance, but I don't even think it's about his time at UNC Wilmington. It's just look at this year.
Yeah.
Has this season gone the way they wanted? No, but you can't sit here and tell me you watched NC State basketball and not come away with, I think as you mentioned it last night, he's gotten into his coaching bag, man. And sometimes it's worked out. They've won games because of calls, because of plays they've called out of timeouts and things like that. From a user and a bunch of numbers, the record speaks for itself. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to agree with you on that. So we have some new ACC monies coming next year. Pay him to leave, please. That is what Boom makes. $1 million plus a year. Get something done. Of course,
the new ACC money.
I know, right? All that money coming in from Alex Stevens. Scott's estimate of 90% of the fan base wanted him out is fairly accurate. He's gotten his time and he's had his opportunities. He's lost me personally after blocking me on Twitter after 5 years of never once tagging him. That was a thing, by the way.
Oh, no.
I never understood the whole blocking people on Twitter thing.
It's just really easy to mute people. They don't know.
They'll never know.
Don't give them the satisfaction.
It's not really.
I take pride in me.
Do you take pride in muting people or blocking people?
No, I don't take pride in either. I don't block it. I have not blocked a single person on Twitter.
I've blocked people.
Nope.
Because it got like oddly personal. So that's when I was just like, forget it.
People want to burn my house down. I get it. Cool.
Yeah. That was the thing that happened. All right. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. The second show of the day. We will see you on Wednesday.